Hello guys from Plant Reviews. Today I'll talk about Philadelphus, the so-called mock oranges. I usually prefer to call these plants by the scientific name of their genus, Philadelphus, indeed, because the term mock orange is used also for other plants not related to these ones. In particular, Coisia, the Mexican mock orange or Mexican orange, and the Pittosporum, the genus Pittosporum, that is the Asian mock orange, that have scent quite different, also are not so much related to these plants anyway. This is the Philadelphus is a genus of about 60 species of plants in native of Europe, but also Asia and North and Central America. The name mock orange comes from the fact that the flowers have a very vague, I would say, similarity to the flowers of oranges in shape and color. In shape, color, and also scent. However, is not really close the similarity. As you can see, the orange blossoms have quite different size. The flower is differently shaped indeed, and I also think the scent is not very much like the mock orange is much sweeter and fresher, even if the mock orange has still a beautiful citrusy fragrance in most mock oranges. Some others have like a more sweet and candy like fragrance. However, I love both the real orange flowers and obviously the mock oranges that are surely some of my favorite fragrant plants for the garden. A plant, for example, I don't like much for the fragrance is the other mock orange, the Mexican mock orange, the Coisia, because all the Coisia I smelled, they have a fragrance of honey that I don't particularly like in plants. It's not very citrusy. I don't know why they are called orange Mexican orange blossoms. However, I suppose different people have different sensitivity in smells. Me, I much better prefer Philadelphus over Coisia. About the Japanese mock oranges or Asian mock oranges of the genus Pittosporum, yes, that's another fragrance I go crazy for. Pittosporum is a plant that is usually quite expensive in UK. I think the cheapest I saw is about £25 a pot, a 3 litre pot. However, this is also a very amazing fragrance, but I think that the plants are suited only for bigger gardens because they are substantial shrubs and the leaves also are pretty big. And for small gardens, in my opinion, the real mock oranges, the Philadelphus, are the best fragrant plants among all of the mock oranges and so-called mock oranges. Another misleading name I found for these plants is syringa, and this is because they were imported from the Ottoman Empire together with the real syringa, that is the scientific name for lilacs. However, due to the fact that the branches of both plants, both lilacs and the Philadelphus, the mock oranges, tend to sometimes show empty branches, like hollow branches. They were pictured in a book by an English botanist called John Gerard, in the book called Herbal, together with the common name of the blue pipe, the lilac, and the white pipe tree, the Philadelphus. This, however, that's the reason because I always prefer to call these plants just Philadelphus. And I love the Philadelphus because of the name, because it comes from two Greek words that is for phileo, that means to love in a very broad way, not just like sexual love, and Adelphos, that means sibling or brother. So basically, the plant meaning is brotherly love. There's also a theory that this plant was actually dedicated to a king of Egypt, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, but this is disputed. Anyway, I think it's a beautiful name for a beautiful plant, and most importantly, wonderfully scented. Philadelphus is a genus of about 60 species, and that is not related much to the real oranges, because they are in two completely different groups, two completely different clades of plants. This is a kind of basal asterid, that is the plant that to which daisies belong. Instead, oranges, like all citrus fruits, belong to the Rutaceae family, that is in the clade of roses, so in the rose family. Philadelphus are shrubs, usually between 1 and 3 meters, both tall and spread, and mostly are deciduous. However, some of them are also evergreen. The flowers are white, or mostly white. For example, a flower in my garden, a blue variety, the Belle Étoile, that has like a purple hued centers in the flower. I'm not too sure if you can see, because it's quite planted far in the garden, but yeah, I think you can see the little purple on the flower. I just try to... okay, cool. Yeah, sorry guys, but I have so many plants here that I can't really reach the plant, yeah, I can't really reach the flower to show you any better. Instead, I'll talk about the Philadelphus on two varieties, actually one species and one hybrid I bought yesterday in Madrona nursery. As I said, mostly are white. Usually the flowers have 4 petals and 4 sepals, but sometimes, as in this case, you have flowers with 5. The leaves are opposite, and usually between 1 and 14 centimeters long, and you can see they are borne opposite leaves on the branches. The bark is differently colored, obviously, in different species and hybrids. However, what these plants are famous for are the flowers. As I said, they come in usually 4 petals and 4 sepals. Usually they are between 4 and 5 centimeters in diameter. Some species have smaller flowers and are mostly white. The best thing about this flowers, however, is the fragrance. Not all species of mock oranges are fragrant. Both Philadelphus are fragrant, but most of them are, and they have a beautiful scent. It's kind of citrusy and sweet at the same time in most of the varieties and species. The fruit is a small capsule containing many seeds, and that's a way that you can propagate sexually the plant. Otherwise, you can propagate it asexually through cuttings. These plants are hardy. In the UK, they are hardy down to minus 15 degrees, with some varieties, like this one, the Starbright, hardy down to minus 30 degrees, so definitely hardy throughout UK. These are plants that are very adaptable to a very wide range of soils. Clay, sandy soils, loamy. However, what do they need is very good drainage, because they can't, they really suffer waterlogged conditions. Some of them, on the other hand, are very drought tolerant. About exposure, most of these plants really thrive in full sun, or at least partial sun. However, there is one variety, that is the Philadelphus aureus, that is cultivated for the golden, very pale green golden color of the leaves, very beautiful. However, this plant is easily scorched in full sun, so this plant really needs light shade to thrive. However, most of the other mock oranges much rather prefer the full sun. These plants also tend to become a bit leggy in time, as you can see. This is the branch that needs to be, as you can see, has been pruned, and basically you need to prune usually the plant after flowering. So these plants usually bloom between very late May and June. So in July, by July, the blooming is finished, and these plants are best pruned usually 1/3 cut back. However, if the bush is really overgrown, you can prune it harder, about 30 centimeters far from the ground. However, one thing you have to consider when you do this is that the plant blooms on the growths of the previous year. So if you do it so hard, you might end up without blooming the year after and wait 2 years for the blooming. However, obviously the plant will be in a much better shape, and also hopefully with much more floriferous, considering it shooted many more branches. So I would recommend you to keep the plant pruned regularly, so in this way you can enjoy the blooming year after year. I'll show you now a few varieties I really love, and I will start with the one that I have in the garden. I bought two plants of the same varieties called Belle Étoile last year, and I planted in the garden. Unfortunately, this one didn't bloom, probably because this area is a little bit more in shade, even if it's producing a lot of new shoots. As you can see, it is a bit crowded by honeysuckles and lilies. However, I have few buds here. I'm not too sure if they are flowers or new growths. I will see in the next few days, I would say, because we are already in June. Here instead I planted my other Belle Étoile. This plant bloomed, not very much, but you can see the blooming. Unfortunately only 3 flowers, but I would probably say it's because, as you can see, it's completely crowded by plants. I planted too many plants in this area. I have lilies, I have the pineapple broom, I have a very invasive passion flowers. I have passion flower I tried to dig out several times, but evidently the roots went down so deep that it sprouts every year. I really don't know what to do other than cutting it as much as possible every year. However, even in this super crowded condition, this plant managed to bloom a little bit. What I will do this autumn, I will give a very good cut back to many of these plants, except obviously the pineapple broom that I love too much to cut it down. But yeah, jasmines and the roses and the passion flower, the honeysuckle, everything will be cut down a lot, and hopefully I will give to my Belle Étoile, Philadelphus Belle Étoile, a much wider area of sun, and hopefully I will have a better blooming next year. The Belle Étoile is a flower that is mostly white, as most as Philadelphus, but with the purple center. These ones instead, it's a species. This is called Philadelphus microphyllus. And talking about fragrance, this one is a very citrusy fragrance, like the Belle Étoile. Belle Étoile and microphyllus have a very citrusy fragrance, and actually I found that the Belle Étoile is a hybrid whose parentage is a bit debated. However, was selected by Lemoine in France at the end of the 19th century, and Lemoine was a Philadelphus hybridizer that used also for a variety cultivar that is also very fragrant, called Philadelphus lemoine. or lemoine. This species, the Microphyllus, hybridized with the Philadelphus coronarius, the European species, while the Microphyllus is an American species, and produced the lemoine, that also is a very, very fragrant plant. I'm not sure about the Belle Étoile. On the Royal Horticultural Society website I found that this is also the Belle Étoile is a cross between Microphyllus and Coronarius, because it is a cultivar of Philadelphus lemoine. Anyway, in other websites I found that is not so sure about the parentage of the Belle Étoile. So I will see if I will be able to find some more information and that update you, but the most important is that the fragrance is absolutely amazing. And in the Microphyllus as well, this is a plant that also grows about 1.5-2 meters in height spread. It is usually found in rock at the foothills of mountains. It is a very, very drought tolerant plant, and is very much used in gardens, especially in North America. The flowers have a very citrusy fragrance and is quite powerful as well. Yesterday, when I was bringing these two Philadelphus in my car, together with the rose I brought yesterday from Madrona Nursery as well, my car was smelling incredibly beautiful, really amazing, of this citrusy and fruity fragrance. However, the Philadelphus Microphyllus, you can distinguish the Microphyllus from the other Philadelphus, because the Microphyllus, as the scientific name, is termed as very small leaves, while the other plants, the other Philadelphus usually have much bigger leaves, about 5-6 centimeters, while in the Microphyllus they're about 2-3 centimeters. The fragrance is I would say, as I said, very citrusy and sweet, and very similar to the Belle Étoile. The other Philadelphus I bought yesterday is the Starbright. This is a plant that, as you can see, has much bigger flowers than the Microphyllus, and also they are quite differently. These are rounder, while in the Microphyllus they're more star-shaped. This is another plant that is incredibly fragrant, was selected in Canada, in Newfoundland, and it is characterized by purple new shoots, and the purple is also present in the buds as well, as well as in the sepals. And this is also an amazingly powerfully fragrant plant. And what I like of this flower also is that, in addition to the citrusy note, there is also kind of a cream note, custard note, so it's more complex. The fragrance is more complex. This is a plant that is about 2 meters by 2 meters in height and spread. And as I said, for all Philadelphus, it's very important to prune and cut back the wood and all the branches, otherwise they tend to become really leggy. A note that I found personally about Philadelphus fragrance is that Philadelphus are incredible, have really a smell that can perfume the whole garden, especially from big plants. So I'm not too sure anyway about the volatility of the compounds of the fragrance of the Philadelphus, because many times you are in the garden and you smell this beautiful perfume around, but then you start smelling the flowers, and really it's not so obvious that the fragrance comes from this flower, because when you smell the fragrance, when you smell the flower itself, the fragrance on the flower is still very faint, and it's incredible how from such a fragrance that if you stick the nose on the flower seems so faint and light, they are able to perfume the whole garden. So what I'm thinking is that probably these flowers have their chemical compounds that produce obviously this beautiful fragrance so volatile that leave the flower almost immediately when they are produced, and then they just fill the air. So when the breeze goes around, you can smell every now and then the beautiful fragrance. But even more, if there's no breeze around, you have just this air filled with this beautiful citrusy and sweet perfume around, but you are not able to know immediately which flower or what is causing it. So it kind of add of a touch of mystery to your garden, really, especially when your guests come around. Anyway, definitely today, 5th of June, the Philadelphus is definitely one of my top fragrant plants for small gardens. Another recommendation, please, when you for the Philadelphus and all for fragrant plants, if you can, try to smell the plant yourself, because really personal preference in perfumes is very important. Also, different plants, especially hybrids, but also sometimes species, different individuals smell can have differences in intensity of fragrance. So it's very important that the best you can do for buying a Philadelphus or any fragrant plant, rather than buying it online, go to a nursery and or a garden center, go smelling flowers around, even if other people think you're crazy, because in this way you will end up with a flower, with a plant that you really love the fragrance. Also remember, fragrance can vary throughout the day, so if you can go to a garden center and nursery in different times of the day, is always better, because sometimes some plants don't smell great during the day and smell incredible during the night, or the other way around. Anyway, as I said, please go yourself to buy a fragrant plant. This is the best way to choose what you really like. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you will enjoy the beautiful Philadelphus fragrance in your garden. If you would like to support this channel, would be great if you can please subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.